Welcome back, everybody. I'm Taylor Ratanasan, and we are reading Daniel chapter 4, 5, and 6 today. And there are so many different aspects from these chapters that we could dive into, but we are going to focus specifically on Daniel chapter 6, Daniel and the Lion's Den. This is one of the most famous Bible stories of all time. If you grew up going to Sunday school, this was probably one of the first stories you remember learning. And in fact, for us, we were gifted a couple books that were based on Daniel and the Lion's Den to my son, my oldest son, Crew. And when he was about 4 years old, I read him one of these books, and it did not go well. His eyes were full of tears. He was so scared, so unsettled that he told me he never wanted to read the book again. It wasn't quite the reaction I had expected. And so as I prepared for this devotional, I went back into his room. I grabbed that book nearly 2 years later, and I wanted to see if there was something missing or something lost that created this fear within my son, rather than what the true story says of faithfulness and hope. And as I read the story, it told the details, but it had missed some very key details. One major detail that I want to focus on today that this book left out, and it was just overlooked, was Daniel's relationship with his Father in heaven. And you think about it, if you remove the personal relationship from the Father, your personal relationship from your Father, and you have to face situations large or small, what are you left with? Hopelessness and fear and despair. Circumstances, they can press in all around us, to the extent that we cannot even see a way out. And when fear grips us, hopelessness is right behind. And despair, it's the complete loss of hope. To despair means that we have turned our backs on hope. We have fixed our eyes on the world and the circumstances that we face. However, when you are connected to the Lord with a daily, intimate, and personal relationship, you can face any situation with hope. And so when my son thinks about this story and he thinks about it based on this book, the children's book, he doesn't see the hope. He sees fear and he sees despair. And so if you remember what the Bible says, if you've read Daniel 6, you'll remember that Daniel is working for King Darius and he gains favor. So much so that the other administrators were jealous. They created a decree that said anybody who chose to worship another god would be thrown into the lion's den. And so instead of worshiping in secret or putting his faith on the back burner, Daniel continued to pray publicly despite the decree. And if we read Daniel 6:10, we see that it says 3 times a day he got down on his knees and prayed, giving thanks to his God, just as he had done before. As children of God, we cannot despair because we have hope. We have hope in God, and it rests on Him. The key is to learn to not focus on one situation and how it is or what it could become, but to focus on God, just like Daniel did, and be willing to believe that God is all-powerful. He knows every situation. He understands what we're enduring, and He knows exactly what is going to happen. Be willing to place complete faith in God and trust that God will be there and that He honors faithfulness and He rescues those who obey and trust Him. And this was Daniel. Daniel displays a life devoted to God. He yields hope and he is rooted in supernatural courage. Our devotion to God invites us in a lifelong journey of commitment. And Daniel, he exhibits to us all what we should long for, a heart and a lifestyle that desires to be in full communion with God. And so let's not overlook Daniel's commitment to prayer and thanksgiving. As we read in Daniel 6:10, he's praying 3 times a day, but this was nothing new to him. And so what would a relationship with the Lord look like if we were on our knees 3 times a day? My guess is that Daniel knew his Father's voice, that he knew Him in the most intimate way, that he heard from his Father, that he was soaked in His presence and His peace, and he was confident in what God was doing. Daniel's life, it was centered on God. It was built on God. And this way of looking at the world was drenched in God. He was known to be a man who lived by prayer, whose life was built on prayer, who consulted his Father in all things and sought the action of God before he took action himself. Daniel would not surrender his relationship with the Father. He was absolutely confident. And so as we read Daniel chapter 6, remember, it was probably scary, but Daniel was secure in his relationship with his Father, and he spoke to him every day, and so he was confident in what he was doing. And so although we will probably never face being thrown into the lion's den, may our relationship with the Lord be constant, consistent, and confident. May our prayer life look like Daniel's, because we can confidently navigate the things of life as our Father walks with us and guides us every step of the way. And so I pray that today you focus on this, that you reevaluate your relationship and your prayer life with the Lord, and I hope you have a great day.